Hello and welcome back to another Coffee with Developers. Today we are here with Santosh Yadav, and I'm very happy to have you here. We spoke at a conference together, and then you talked a bit about your life, and that's what's really excited me. So, what is it, the thing that actually makes you very happy to be here and be a developer right now? Like, can you tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak to you. You have been like a big influence for my career as well. I have been following you for many years. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Talk about my career. I just like to call myself as an accidental engineer, I would say, because I never thought about like going into tech. I was just like, okay, what should I do after my schooling, right? So I was confused, really confused, because uh, the what you can say, the city where I come from, it's like for everyone, right? So you might have heard about Mumbai. It's like you will find rich and poor as well. And I was living in one of the slums, so it was hard to actually know about like what you want to do in your career. Like there are hardly people to talk to. My parents were not educated as well, so I just like completed my completed my schooling, and then I was confused because I couldn't get an admission into the science stream, which people told me that okay, if you go into science, you may have a good career, and that's where I got one of my father's friend actually reached out to us and said, hey, so there is something called diploma, which you can do, and it was easy to get an admission there because not many people were aware of it. Early 2002, and I went there, got into computers, and yeah, everything changed. So I just heard like, okay, what you want to do? And the of course the person who was the I think he was administrative there in the college, and he asked me like, okay, these are the streams which you can go opt for. For example, electronics, mechanical, computers. And when I had computers, I was like, okay, let's do this. I said, yeah, computers. I want to do computers. And that's how I started. Like I started doing my engineering, completed my diploma, and then went out and did my bachelor's, and completed my bachelor's in 2008.
Wow. I mean, I never went to university because in my background was basically a worker family, and they basically said after my A levels, okay, now go and get a high paying job. Like we don't pay you to go to university. So although it was free in Germany, so I guess in India it was available to you as well because there was a support program, or how did you manage to be able to afford it?
No, actually, it was hard because, of course, my family is not from very rich background, right? So my father had some savings to like support me during the diploma, but like he lost his job when I was in second year. So, of course, that there was a question to me that should we stop your education like after doing diploma? And that's where I actually cried a lot. So still remember the conversation which we had. I really wanted to do bachelor's. Of course, I was aware that okay, we don't have money, but I wanted to study. Like in India, it's like if you don't have money, it's hard to like study further, right? So I really cried the entire night. I was really disappointed that I won't be able to do bachelor's. And then my mom actually just fought with my father. She said, do whatever you want to do. I mean, I still remember that because I was, of course, we had a small room. So if you talk, like everyone listens to whatever you say, right? So she said, yeah, do whatever you want to do. My son is going to college. And my father said, okay, I'll manage. And then he, of course, borrowed some money from my uncles and friends, and then he paid for it.
And how did you end up then in like what was the next step? I mean, having a degree is thousands of people with degrees. So how did you get into a job, and what did you think made you stand out?
So the year I completed my degree was 2008. So I'm sure everyone in tech remember 2008, right? It was the worst year we had, I think, for IT because there was no jobs. I mean, literally, there were no jobs. So it was hard because my friends had told me that, okay, once you complete your degree, there will be companies which will come to your college and they will hire you because it was a norm, right? It was a norm because in 2000, early 2000, it was like engineers were in demand. I remember my friend was just hired because he knew .NET. So he went to the interview and said, yeah, I know .NET. And they were like, okay, come from tomorrow. That's how it was. And suddenly there were no jobs. So of course we had to struggle. I remember going out with my friends every weekend and looking for job agencies and applying for, like, giving them a resume. Hey, if you have anything. And then of course I got a small job. Like, it was not like very, it was not paying enough, but I just had a job, for example. So it was like paying me close to $100 per month. I mean, and I was like, okay, let's learn something, right? Rather than being home, I'll just maybe probably learn something. But that turned out not to be true. So I had to leave that job in 9 months. And then of course I started like hopping jobs, because there was a time, of course, there was no work, and also there was no money. I mean, you cannot like work for cheap, right? If you know that, okay, you are a good engineer, and then you're getting peanuts basically. So I kept changing my jobs, and unless around 2011, that was the year I ended up working for a startup. So I got an opportunity, and I was like, okay, let's give it a try, because I had heard from my friends that, okay, startups are really good place to start your career, because you get to explore a lot of things, and which happened for next 5 years. I worked a lot, and I grew up as an engineer. For example, I started as a senior software engineer, became a team lead, and by the time I left, I was like heading 5 departments. And then, of course, it also helped me realize that, okay, this is not something which I like. I'm more of a developer who likes to code and likes to help developers rather than just doing a team lead. And so I started to quit like after 5 years, moved back into IC role, and then moved to another city. And that was like the turning point, I would say, in my career. So I moved to Pune, started having more time, because I was not working with startup anymore. So it's not like 4 days I'm in office, or like I'm doing crazy 12 hours of coding every day. And I realized that, again, this is now the time to like improve myself as well. I started learning Angular, and uh, then started teaching Angular. So it was early 2017. Angular 4 was launched, and I jumped into it. I said, okay, let's do this. And of course, then that was the time, of course, I was struggling financially. So it helped me like get a good job as well. Uh, the money part settled down a little bit. Then decided, okay, let's do something for community. Now, the thing which I wanted to do is like to have a stable income, which I have achieved now. And how I did it, of course, for free, right? People like you who have been writing blogs, creating content. So I was inspired by everyone. And then I said, okay, let's do that. And around 2019, went to a conference and came back home. I remember just 5 days after coming back home, I raised my first PR. And that's how my journey into open source started. And I never stopped. Like, it's been 5 years now.
Well, you also started educating yourself, like you do tech talks and you have like a channel and you're doing that. Do you think this is something that you wanted to do because you learned from other people? Is it something to give back to the community? Or did you always have that streak that you said, like, I want to teach people as well as just knowing the things?
Yeah, I mean, because of course I learned everything for free. So from people, like I was inspired that I should do something. Of course, I was not aware of like what I can do. Right, this is something which I explored over the years. So I started with small, like for example, I started just doing open source contribution and then writing blogs. So I said, okay, let's do some blogs first, and that's where I got a lot of help from the people from the community as well. They helped me review my initial articles, and then after a year, of course, when you do the same thing for a long time, you get bored, right? You think, okay, let's explore something else, and that's where the idea of doing live streams came into. So after a year, I was like a little bit burned out from the things I was doing, because of course I was doing a lot of open source and a lot of writings. And then I said, okay, let's explore this, like this YouTube thing as well. And I started doing this podcast, this in 2020. So of course, it was not something which I had already planned. Yeah, once I moved ahead, I was like, okay, this is something also I can do. This is the thing I can do, and that's how it started.
Mm-hmm. Did you manage to give back to your family? Are they still around? Is it something that are you still visiting from time to time?
So I'm not in touch with my parents to be, that's the sad part, but also, they were a little bit, there was a time we were not in good terms. So I just moved out around 2015 with my daughter and my wife. So I started from zero again in 2015. So I had nothing, no, we just left home. Like it was okay, let's move on because we had enough. Uh, and yeah, I think that was a time friends helped us. One of my friend actually offered me her house for very very small amount. I would say it was something which I could afford uh, as a monthly rent. And then I built everything from scratch again. So we had absolutely nothing. There was nothing to sleep on. I remember like sleeping on the floor with my daughter. So those are the memories which always makes me stronger whenever I'm disappointed or like if I'm not moving ahead in my life. That okay, thinking about the time when I had nothing, right? But I still do like send some money every month to my parents. They of course they are the one who helped me during my education, and so of course I still owe them, but yeah, not in very good terms. So
Well, sad to hear, but good to hear that you had friends, and good to hear that it shows that the online community and the real community is even more important in these things. Finding a place where you can live actually is going to be an interesting thing. How was access to hardware that back then? Like, did you use computers at the uni? Did you get your own? Like, how was that possible? Because I remember I worked in India in 2001 as well, and we had like in our office we tried to save money, so we had like one computer with Photoshop on it, and people would VNC into that machine and use Photoshop. So you move your mouse, and like 5 seconds later, the Photoshop would do something. So there was like all kind of like money saving ideas, but people were very clever about it. So how was that part of the education part is one of that, but access to hardware is one thing that every engineer needs as well. So how did you get around that issue?
it was hard. So of course, during college, I had no access to computers, so I could access computers only during college, like inside the labs, and it was hard. So even I like purchased my first laptop in 2015. So before that, I think most of the things which I learned was around in the office. So whenever like I used to go to office, if there was no work, I just used to jump on the Microsoft. I remember Microsoft had a portal where you can learn all the things like C Sharp. So that's what I used to do. I actually just used to like take notes in my notebook so I can go home and read about it. And then 2011, when I joined the startup, they gave me a laptop which I could carry at home. So of course, uh, now I had access to laptops. I could write some code, and even in during my office hours, right, I can do that. But yeah, 2015, I decided like, of course, now I want to move away from this organization. So I purchased my first laptop, which I used till like 2020. So for 5 years, I did all the open source for contribution for Angular using that laptop. I think I even did few streams when I started streaming from that laptop. It was really old i4, Pentium i4. So yeah, it was yeah. It was not never a blocker because you can say I was always I wanted to learn, right? And if you want to learn, you will figure out the way. It's not like, oh, I don't have a laptop. What should I do?
A refreshing thing to do. It always cracks me up when people start in the engineering world just basically, oh, I need a good gaming laptop before I can't. It's a matter of like, as you said, like if you want to learn, you find a way. And I think there's, I have a MacBook from 2013 as well, and basically it tells me every 2 days that the battery needs to be replaced immediately, and it's been doing that for 8 years. So sometimes our computers tell us as well we need to upgrade completely. But of course, it's necessary to have good machines. But to get started, you basically want to learn, and I think it's wonderful to hear that the opportunities that we put out there, the free content that is available on the basically gives people an opportunity to learn. And this is why I always published what I did as well, because I felt the same. Back then I looked at a W3C website and just looked at the HTML specs and the CSS specs and learned from those, because that was everything that was available. And it's just great that these things still are out there. So In terms of when you were leading engineers as well, like you didn't like it, as you said, you wanted to get back to an IC. What's the biggest issues that you found in that thing? Because I always found that in your career, at one time you get asked to become a manager, and you're not actually becoming a programmer anymore, and you had to find ways to work around that. I did that by inventing the developer evangelist role in Yahoo back then, which we didn't have. So did you feel the same, that there is a lack of like progression, that at some certain times you're asked to become a manager because developers are not seen as like full employees? Or I don't know why that is.
I think it was just a matter of the opportunity, because that was the time I was doing a lot of things inside the organization, right? So I was taking the initiatives, and then they realized, okay, this he's like I'm a perfect fit for the team lead role, right? So they moved my team lead to another department, another role, and then said, okay, would you like to do this? And it was early in my career, and once the thing is, once you explore things, you realize that if you like it or not. Like until unless you don't do it, you never know, right? So I was like, okay, I want to do it, because I used to hear from my friends, like, this is how you progress in your career. I was not aware that you can be an IC for a long time. Believe me, that I was not aware. I was just like, okay, you do coding for a few years, then you become a team lead, then you become a manager, and that's it. But when I started doing it, I was like, I miss something, and I miss writing code, because there used to be times like I'm just whole day I'm into meetings. I'm just like talking to business, I'm talking to another marketing team, this team, that team, helping my developers resolve some issues. And then I thought, okay, this is not the thing which I want to do in my career. I mean, if this is the only way, of course, this is not going to like help me anyways, because I love writing code. I love solving the problems. And then I thought, like, okay, I'll never do this again. And whenever nowadays, even whenever I change a job, the first conversation I have is like, look, I don't want to become a manager. So what is the path you have for me? And that's even in my current organization, I just had this conversation in my first month. So I was like, okay, look, I'm really I love what I'm doing right now, because I joined as an IC, but what is the way forward, right? I don't want to become a manager. And good thing is, of course, in my now, I think most companies have this staff and principal roles where you can be individual contributor, and we have like the same role at my current workplace as well. So I'm really happy about it, and this is the thing which I'm going to do. I just want to be an IC. It's not like I don't like working with people. I like working with people. I like to resolve their issues, like helping them probably grow in their career, helping them if they are stuck somewhere. But yeah, I don't want to become a lead where I'm just attending meetings entirely.
So you're now in Hamburg. How did that happen?
Uh,
And how did you fit in? What kind of, is Germany a place that is inviting for IC people to come work, or were there any troubles with that?
I mean, to be frank, I had no trouble getting here, because I have a friend in Germany. So he, like, we worked together in past, like in 2020 for a few months, like, but I was working from India remotely. And it was around 2021 that, okay, I started exploring things. I wanted to move out of India, basically. So I started exploring, like, what are my options. I had option to go to US, but things are crazy in US. I mean, I no offense, but I think that's not a country for my family. So personally, for my family, I want my family to be safe. So I said, okay, that's out of the question. Then one of my clients said, would you like to move to Canada? I was like, Canada, okay, for 6 months, then I won't be able to do anything. So, and then I've, of course, I like learned about the other factors, for example, like job security, good family life, and that's what I wanted, right? For money, I mean, I'm at a point where my family is more important than money for me. So I don't want to make a lot of money, but yeah, I want like to be with my family. I want my family to be safe. And considering all those, I said, okay, I think Germany sounds like a good option. And then I spoke to my friend who, and fortunately at that time they were looking for some developers. And I just spoke to him. He said, yeah, we are hiring. And then I spoke to he connected me to his hiring manager, and things worked out. Like they did an interview in Angular, and of course that was not a DSA. So I cleared that interview, and then flew here in Jan of 2022 last year. And things didn't work out with my first job. I mean, there were some problems, so I left it, and now. Uh, after 6 months, I joined my current organization, which is Celonis. So that was a hard time because, of course, being an immigrant, you're always scared, right? What will happen, because that job was not working perfectly for me, and I wanted to change, but how to change? And of course, I had few friends from Twitter who helped me like guide me how you can change your job being an immigrant in Germany, and that worked out. And I'm happy with my current job now. It's been more than 1.5 years, and I'm loving it so far.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, we also have, I mean, in Europe, you have like job protection. That's the other thing. Like once you had a job, you actually have a chance to get like unemployment benefits until you find a new job. And I mean, I just changed jobs as well. And for the first time since 1994, I got unemployment benefits. So that they didn't even have me in a computer anymore. So it was really interesting. The bureaucracy was one thing that shocked me when I came back from England to Germany. That was the only thing. But then again, you didn't need a visa the way you do in America. I mean, that's the biggest problem. If you lose your job in America on an H-1B visa or something, you got
Yeah.
2 weeks to leave the country. And if you got a family and you'd found a flat, that's impossible. I think that's just cruel way of making people work. So it seems like that's a better way to work on that. So you've been focused on Angular quite a lot. Like, is it because that community was very intuitive to you, or is it something? I found that the Angular community is a bit more mature. It's like more like senior engineers, people that are working on larger projects that have been around for ages, rather than like the fast, I don't know, React, Vite, whatever, Twix, new things that you do every week. So is it something that you feel good in, and is it a community that you could tell other people is a great community to start in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, because I've been working with enterprises all my life, so and like I always had like an Angular project whenever I joined. So and then when I started interacting with the community, I really find it very inclusive and very helpful. So that's why I think, okay, let's go ahead, right, and start contributing. And then once I started contributing, there were more people like helping me. So of course, that's why I really love the Angular community, and of course, the way framework is progressing, right? It has been on right path now. You might have seen like in 2023 they came up with a lot of features, and everyone is talking about Angular now. I mean, of course, there was a time even I was disappointed being an Angular developer because there was no actual features, no progress being made. Tools were changing, Angular was not. And now I think this was the year of Angular where they changed a lot of things. And of course, community makes me stick to this framework as well, because they're really helpful. Whenever I need help, I can just reach out to someone and they're like, okay, yeah, let's have a chat.
What would be your advice, somebody who just wants to get into this, like who? I mean, the other thing. Or quickly go back to one thing. Seem to be focusing more on DevRel rather than just like development. Like you do a lot of talks, you do like your streaming stuff. Don't you think that like being a full-time engineer is a more of a safer bet, or why do you do this? Is it outreach that's fun to do, or is it something to give back to the community? What drives you there?
I mean, to be frank, this goes a very long way back during my college days, because in my college I had no access to I would say books, even like, of course, internet was a hard thing to get. And when I was at a stage where I saw that, okay, I mean, I can give back to the community but in which way, right? So I just wanted to make sure that whatever I do is free. So all the contents which I do is free. And so people like me, like who had no access, and there are still people, right, who don't have access to books, who don't probably have access to laptops, or they cannot buy a new course, right? So they can afford the education. So that's what the thought was. And when I started doing this, and when I had enough money, I would say, because there was a time I was doing paid gigs, I was actually teaching Angular for money. And I did like few courses as well for money. But as people say, right, if you're struggling financially, first try to settle down your finances before you go ahead and help someone. So that's what I did. I was like, okay, let's now this is settled. I don't have to worry about money anymore. So let's start doing this for free. So everything which I do, like everything I create, is available for free for the developers who cannot afford to buy a new course, or to probably go ahead and buy a new book. So that's what the idea was, right? So that's the idea which I had in my mind before I started doing this. And to just give you a more idea, we also have our own publication. We actually run a community called This Is Learning. So This Is Learning is like a bunch of writers. There are a lot of writers who writes for our blog posts. We do podcast as well. Apart from my own, we also do this is Tech Talks podcast, which we have been doing for 2 years now, and we'll start doing the next season as well. So we'll be back in 2023 with more podcasts. So yeah, and I got like lucky that I have my co-founder who has the same passion for free education. So my co-founder, who is from Denmark, his name is Lars. So we both have been running this is learning community for 3 years now. I mean, he started in 2020. I joined in 2021.
So what would be your advice for somebody who wants to get started right now? I think it can be overwhelming these days when you see people earning millions of dollars in America and like changing a new framework every week. And what would be a way to for you to calm people down when they want to get started? Is it your story? Is it generally better now than it was before, or is it different? What would you say is the fastest way or the best way to actually find happiness and a job in our market right now?
I mean, this is where I whenever I speak to like developers, right? So who wants to get into tech, they're like, okay, really confused. Should I do open source? Because many developers says, okay, so open source is the only way. Should I do DSA? Because there are other developers who are saying DSA is the only way. I would say just like explore the things. For example, when you are in college, you get like 3 to 4 years to explore things, and that's the best time. Like that's the best time to actually explore multiple technologies, multiple framework, and then decide for yourself. Don't follow this influencers. They will just sell things which they like or from where they can make money. That's why they say, okay, learn this, learn that, because of course they're going to make money from there. But will you be happy doing that? That's the answer you have to. That's the question you have to answer yourself. So I always advise people to like go ahead and do things, learn it, and see if you're enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it, move ahead. You have not wasted nothing. You have learned something, right? Because once you learn something, this is something which is going to help you in learning few more things. For example, I learned Java, and then I started doing .NET because of course I can carry my learnings from Java to .NET. And the same when I moved to TypeScript, I could carry my learning from .NET to TypeScript. So the things you learn will never go wasted. So just like think about what you are going to enjoy. And once you start your career, like we have been in industry for more than 10 years or more than a decade now. So we are not going to do the same thing again every 5 or 10 years, right? We also like get bored. We are humans, right? We are not just a bot who is doing the same thing again every day, and we don't care about if they are happy or not, right? They're bots. So, but we are human, so we are not going to do the same thing for your entire life. And of course, at some point of time, you will think, okay, now I'm bored, let's do something else. So if you have this mentality that I'm going to only follow this because this influencer said this is the way forward, not going to work. I mean, you will get bored.
Excellent. Well, I'm very happy you're around. I'm very happy about your career, and it was great to see you on stage as well and to see how much you share. So I thank you very much again for being on the show. So hopefully people will come and see what you do and actually learn about your stuff. We're going to link all the stuff that you do in the description later on, so people can follow it there. And yeah, that was it for Coffee with Developers today. We didn't have any coffee yet because I forgot to get mine from the kitchen. But it was great to see you. And thanks again so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure talking to you.